Well, as strange as it is, we're out in the world.
I've forgotten what outside was like.
So this is a very special episode to mark the occasion of us having the podcast for 1 year. You can hear all of the lovely nature sounds, including my dog, who's upset. We are at Lake Worth, which is in Fort Worth, because we are going to talk about the Lake Worth Goat Man.
Or also known as the Lake Worth Monster.
Also called the Goat Island Monster.
Really? I hadn't known that one.
When I found out that there was a cryptid in our area, I was like, well, that's within driving distance. Let's do it. But then the plague happened. And then I figured this was a good opportunity for us to break our quarantine and come out.
I feel like that's an online ad that never really took off. Cryptids in your area.
There are hairy goat men who want to meet you.
Oh, God.
So you will have to forgive us if the audio quality is a little bit different, and you're obviously going to hear the lovely bird sounds and dog sounds and wave noises and all of that. And we're probably going to be a little bit looser with the edit today because we are out in the world. We are actually enjoying the sunshine on a nice Saturday. So in the summer of 1969, it was the summer of 69, and there was over the course of, I think, just a couple of weeks, less than that. It was just a couple of like within a week, some people reported seeing the goat man, and he was reported to have like jumped onto the hoods of cars, and he was photographed along a road on the way to Goat Island here in Lake Worth. And famously, he also threw a tire at a car.
That's always the story you hear.
Yep, is the tire. And there one photograph of him exists, which looks like a giant fuzzy blotch of white. And I'll make sure there's a link to that in the show notes. And that's pretty much it. That's all of the official sightings of the Lake Worth Goat Man.
Well, I just want to say there's plenty of room for improvement.
Yeah, there's basically nothing here. Now, the meta story for the Lake Worth Goat Man is pretty much that some teenagers were bored during the summer and it was hot and they didn't have anything else to do. And so they dressed up as a goat man and scared some people and threw a tire at some other people. And then all of the locals showed up with their rifles to shoot the goat man and they got scared off. So that's the meta story, but we can improve that.
And now it's 2020. When you're bored, you just go and start a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, these days they would have started their own cryptid podcast. So let's pare down the facts that we know, which is that he is described as a goat monster or goat man, or just monster, that it was bright white and furry and about 7 feet tall, which screams sort of Yeti monster to me. But I think that I'd love to lean into that goat angle a lot.
My question is, why is it always goats? Like all the urban legends, it's always the goat man of such and such place.
Yes, or the goat sucker, the chupacabra.
Yeah.
I think in this case, goats were on people's minds because there is a goat island like half a mile in the direction I'm pointing, which obviously you can't see because it's an audio format. But over there, across the lake, there is a goat island. And so I think goats are just like, we're in the zeitgeist. But also, go look up what goats look like. They're freaking weird, man. They got horizontal eyelids and not eyelids. They got horizontal pupils in their eyes, and they're little baby goats, cute. Adult like billy goats, nasty boys, man.
Yeah, and I mean, there's always that Judeo-Christian tie-in.
Oh yeah, for sure. So so I think we need to lean into that goat angle a little bit, and we have some people passing by. So let's think. Are we talking about a man hybrid creature, or is this a mutated goat of some sort, or?
I like the mutated goat angle.
Okay,
especially if maybe it escaped from Goat Island.
I think. Yeah, so I should have looked up what the story for Goat Island was, why it was called Goat Island. Probably because it was an island and there were goats living on it.
One would suspect.
One would guess that that's the origin of Goat Island's name. So, okay, so this was a goat living on Goat Island, or perhaps the descendant of the goats from Goat Island, who is angry at the locals, I guess, for disrupting their lifestyle, maybe, or
I guess, yeah.
Okay, so this is the 60s. So this is in the middle of the atomic scare, too.
Okay.
So maybe this was it seems so thematically appropriate for this to be some sort of radiation accident that causes. Yeah. Okay. So we have a goat living on Goat Island is hit with a gamma ray burst or something like that. Some sort of strange. This seems very sci-fi B movie now.
Why not? We haven't really gone that angle lately. Let's lean into it.
I think sci-fi B movie is where we're at. So it gets hit by a stray gamma ray burst and mutates over the course of, let's say, several weeks into becoming a goat.
So we have the goat Hulk now.
Yes, it hulks out and gets all angry. And so I think it's really hard for me to imagine even a mutated goat like developing like full on hands maybe. So can you imagine what a cloven hoof does when it becomes more graspy? Like it'd be almost like crab claws. Oh. Like if it can move those two cloven parts separately and they get bigger and a little bit like how creepy is that?
I hate it. Okay,
then we're doing it. And this thing it grows to be 7 feet tall and it's living out on Goat Island. Goats are pretty much omnivorous. Famously, they'll eat almost anything. Although they're primarily grazers, so it's still mostly vegetarian, but opportunistically would eat meat. But to sustain that kind of growth, I think that means that it's got to go for a more rich food source. And it's not. And if you've ever seen food from the 50s and 60s, it's all Jell-O molds and and TV dinners. So I think it's got. I mean, maybe it develops a thirst for human flesh.
As all good monsters do.
Yeah, this is classic B-movie monster I think we're dealing with here. I took my hat off because it was getting hot, but I got the sun in my eyes, so now I have to go back. Okay. I think if we want to give it a little bit more of a serious tone, I think the monster of Goat Island sounds really good.
Okay.
Rather than the Lake Worth Goat Man. Although, so it is called the Lake...
Or we could go with the Goat Hulk, the Gulk.
The Gulk? That's good too. Maybe Gulk is so this is a specific Lake Worth Goat Man.
Okay.
This is the Lake Worth Goat Man. And then a Gulk is if it happens to be elsewhere, like any kind of goat that hulks out is a Gulk, but not all Gulks are the Lake Worth Goat monster because they might be somewhere else.
Like Dracula is a vampire, but not all vampires are Dracula.
Exactly. So lake is right there in the name. I feel like it needs to have some sort of lake angle. This was something that was really killing me with the historical version, is that although he was centered around Lake Worth, where we are, he wasn't didn't involve the lake. It wasn't like Loch Ness Monster or I can't remember what Lake Champy is in, but there's a Canadian lake Loch Ness Monster called Champy. So maybe he's a semi-aquatic goat man.
I like that he maybe has a boat.
The goat boat. Boatman. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So as he grew larger and more dangerous, he also got smart enough to steal a boat, I'm assuming. I don't think he crafted a boat, right?
Probably not.
No, I think he stole a boat from somebody.
Not with his weird clacky goat fingers.
Yes. In order to move around the lake and terrorize people. Or maybe he does that maneuver where, he stole a canoe and he does the thing where you flip the canoe over and you go underneath it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Because making him a strong swimmer sounds good to me. That makes him sort of terrifying.
Goats are famously known for being.
Well, but I mean, he's a monster. He's mutated, and he was on an island, so he's got to get off the island somehow.
That's true.
But yeah, I like the idea that he's got his boat, his goat boat,
his goat boat.
But yeah, that's a maneuver he learned. He doesn't always. Sometimes he rides in the boat. Sometimes he uses it as camouflage. Maybe sometimes he hides under the boat when it's on a shore and then springs out at people. He's obviously carnivorous because this is a B-movie monster and he wants to eat co-eds, I guess, or summer camp kids.
Yeah.
Those are the only things that can be eaten by a monster. Yeah. And so maybe he starts so if we're doing an actual B-movie, maybe it progresses over the course of the film. He starts off as more goat-like and less man-like. And, it really just scares people off and makes them leave behind their picnic baskets. And he rummages through them and eats the baskets too because he's a goat. He eats everything. And then over the course of the story, he gets more and more developed. And then it's just a guy in a goat costume. And then it's an animatronic goat man. Right. Or not animatronic. This would be too early.
Claymation.
Claymation, yes. That Ray Harryhausen, he's the claymation guy. I forget. But yes, it's that full armature and then fur is very hard to do with stop motion because you can't get the fingerprints out of it. But they managed to do it for King Kong, I think, pretty well. So let's assume they can make the stop motion works. Or he just suddenly gets not hairy at the end because he's made of plasticine. It looks like Gumby.
Maybe there's some point in the movie where they splash the goat man with acid.
Yes, and he's or gets caught in a fire.
You know, those convenient barrels of acid they have lying around Lake Worth here.
Or I think covering him with gasoline and letting him on fire will also be a good cinematic thing. And this is Texas, so there's oil barrels and stuff everywhere, including, as an aside, Daryl the Barrel I found out about recently. Sorry, this is going to be a diversion. I was playing an RPG with some friends, and I needed to explain what Buc-ee's was to people.
Oh yeah.
So I did a Google image search for Buc-ee, the mascot of Buc-ee's, and I was scrolling through the Google image search, and I found him with another mascot, which was a barrel full of trash that said "Don't mess with Texas" on it. And I did a little more digging and found out that is Daryl the Barrel, the official mascot of the "Don't Mess with Texas" slogan.
Nice.
Which I think says more about our state than just about anything else could.
Yes, our mascot being a trash bin is just about
an oil barrel full of trash that says "Don't mess with Texas." So he gets more and more, and they light him on fire, so now he's not furry anymore. What's the ultimate destruction for the goat man? What's the thing that takes him down? Run over by a car?
I feel like there's got to be like some sort of like over-engineered like farm equipment involved in his demise.
Oh, maybe. This was a pretty rural area at the time. Oh no, we're in Texas. I think he has to fight a longhorn. I think it's the longhorn that does him in.
Is this a longhorn that has undergone a similar radiation process?
I think, yeah.
Thereby setting up the sequel?
Yes, exactly. They're like, well, we can't. We've tried everything. We've shot him with our guns. We've lit him on fire with our oil barrels, and nothing is stopping the goat man. So they arrange whatever. Like let's say that the original radiation burst that like set him off to begin with was from some sort of experiment that the government was doing, and they re-engineer the same thing, but instead of it hitting a goat, they hit a longhorn bull, and that thing rapidly grows up into another stop-motion animation monster that the two of them have to battle at the bay.
This definitely feels like a case of I swallowed a fly to catch, or swallowed a spider to catch the fly.
They've definitely created a bigger problem than they started with. Yes, and then we have the climactic battle of the goat man versus the, I want to say longhorn. So there's got to be a clever name for the longhorn too, right?
Oh yeah. Or maybe they just completely ran out of ideas and like the Lake Worth Steer Man.
The Lake Worth Steer Man. No, it's maybe they just call it a minotaur, even though it's not a minotaur. So it's like the Lake Worth Minotaur.
I feel like there's a redemption act for our goat man in the second movie. Like, the giant steer is now out of control and preying upon the populace. But then we find out that the goat man survived his encounter.
Yeah, by hiding under the boat.
Yes,
and they have to go find him, and he's in some cave or something like that they've come up with because maybe none of the producers have been to Texas and know anything about it. Yeah, that's great. Okay, I'm calling it. That's our goat man.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, that was obviously not our full time, but I have helpfully prepared ahead of time with some listener questions, which we're going to go through.
Alrighty.
Let me. Oh crap! My app closed, and now I didn't find it. There we go. None of my search terms worked. I had to go just like to my most recent documents. Okay. So the very first question is from my own father.
Okay.
Which was specifically, do we prepare for episodes of Monster Mechanics?
Minimally?
The answer is that we do as absolute little as possible. Most of the time, if we cover something that we're familiar with, I don't need to do a lot of research in order to explain what a Minotaur is. But I do usually read I usually go on. Swear to God, I usually go to Wikipedia and then I look for the articles that the Wikipedia article is referencing, and I go read a couple of those, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's about the extent of my my deep dive before we start.
We do try to keep it to monsters and creatures that we're vaguely familiar with. But then also, like, we also talk about the ideas ahead of time. I think we've mentioned a few times in the podcast on air that, like, we were chatting ahead of time. And what that means is basically that we make sure there's some what we call meat on the bones before we get started. Because if we go into something completely cold, kind of like we did with the Goat Man, we tend to have a very short episode.
Yeah.
It's a little bit harder to strange those out.
Although I usually find that the episodes that tend to bloom out of control are the ones that
absolutely.
we don't have a super clear idea.
Yeah, we do have this is one of the reasons we don't prepare so much, is that if we have a super clear idea that, like, a completely, like, one of us has thought through a thing and, like, has an idea completely set out, and the other person maybe isn't super engaged, like, it'll just, like, fall out onto the table completely formed. And we'll be 23 minutes into the episode and be done. So we do as little preparation as possible, mostly, and also to a certain extent to, like, have that, like, generation on air. I mean, this is a brainstorming podcast where you're hearing the process of Zach and I talking about something. And if we just came in with a script that we'd, like, prepped ahead of time, you wouldn't hear the gears turning, basically. So we do prep. We don't prep that much. As little as possible is the answer. Okay, what's next? Poor boy. So Grayest on Twitter asks, the original premise of the show was to take boring D&D monsters and rework them to be far more interesting, and through that enable more interesting campaigns. How much of that does that still factor into the way we develop monsters? So I think that to a certain extent we'd maybe put ourselves off as a D&D centric podcast to begin with. I don't, at least in my head, that was never specifically part of the thing. We were always going to go for non D&D monsters. So in that sense, we haven't moved very far off from the original brief, basically. That being said, I didn't think that we would go into sci-fi and modern movie monsters as early as we did. I thought we would spend more time exhausting it, but when the ideas came up, we just liked it and just went with it. I think, to my mind, the hut episode was one that I did not plan to do. And then we were talking online, basically making fun of the idea that we might do an episode about huts, and then had enough ideas to make a hut episode. So D&D being the focus is not something that it was never really, like, the heart of the show. It was especially RPGs was an angle we were taking. We still like to keep that RPG framework. I mean, yeah.
And I think a lot of these things can be used, however you see fit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think another part of it was, at least initially, like, that was where a lot of our initial comfort zone was in these D&D monsters. Yeah. And I think we also kind of, moved away from it because there's already a lot of podcasts out there that are touching on D&D monsters with their own personal angles on it. So, maybe branch out a bit, see what else is out there. Yeah.
And really it's whatever tickles our fancy that we go, oh yeah, let's do that. We don't try to restrict ourselves too much in that way. Let's see. I got The Dark Fiddler asks, what monster is too good to get the treatment? So I have an immediate answer to that one, which is the obvious one, which is The Thing from John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah, that is pretty much untouchable at this point.
Well, and also that one especially is, like, the less we know about it, the better. If we understood how that movie monster works, all of those, like, restrictions make it less scary, make it less effective.
And I think, like, around the time Alien came out, I would have said Alien because just that one movie was perfect on its own.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But they added so much more to it that they just kind of wore off all the rough edges, all the things that made it interesting. And so we had to step in.
Yeah, we have to step in. And I think that may be the guiding light, is if there's something that is very singular and feels kind of it feels like it's of its place and that it does its job super well. There isn't a lot of room for us to go in and make changes to it. Yeah. And it's all the ones that have the stupid questions about, like, well, why didn't it do this? And then why doesn't it do, like, and why is, a question that we may not get to, but that's always bugged me is, like, why is every Star Trek character a human with some, like, stuff on their forehead, right? And there is a real answer to that, which is budgetary answers. But, like, what's a good in-universe answer to that? And before you at me on Twitter, yes, I know there's an actual answer in universe, and it's stupid, and we'd have to come up with something better. But yeah, the really obvious answer is The Thing, and then Alien at the time would have been a really good one. I'm trying to think of anything more modern than that. I haven't seen a lot of modern horror movies that involve monsters really, because all the really good ones lately have been more systemic, like Get Out and stuff like that, where it's like it's about the like horrible world you live in rather than the monsters that are within it. Yeah, I think those are the two big ones. Okay. Okay. This one we may not have a good answer for it, but we're going to think on it for a second. What two monsters would make the most interesting hybrid in vein of the Liger?
Ooh.
I think if you cross dragon with just about anything, you get interesting results.
That's why they added the half-dragon templates to D&D.
Yeah. Dragons are really cool. I think that maybe this isn't the straight-up hybrid, but any creature infected with lycanthropy. So, like, a minotaur that turns into a werewolf is cool. Or, like, even, like a Bigfoot that turns into a werewolf is also, like all of, or even something non-human, like a chimera that, like, partially turns it, like that would be an interesting cross that would be fun to see.
See, I feel like there's a route to go with either having like some kind of doppelganger or mimic mix of some kind.
Yeah, where it has like limited changing properties, but also some of its other host species.
Or it's like half dragon, half wardrobe.
That's good.
All mouth.
Okay, here's a hypothetical question from some random person on Twitter whose name I can't read because it's too small. You get the magical powers. Oh, no, wait. We're going to do that as a mini episode. Never mind. I'm not doing that.
All right.
Cut that one. Well, then our last one is, what do you do to be successful during... Oh, we already answered that one. Okay, we blew through these much quicker than I thought we were going to. Screw it. Then we're doing the one that I said we weren't going to do.
Alrighty.
You get magical powers if you kill and eat your favorite magical creature. Do you do it?
Well, how long do these powers last?
Yes, and also what powers are they? And okay, so first off, step one: what's your favorite magical creature?
Oh gosh, putting me on the spot here.
Yeah.
Do you have something in mind?
My answer is werewolves. For sure, I would take werewolves because I don't know. They grab me in my heart.
I got to go with illithids.
Yeah.
Because they're gross and awful, and they're just the perfect monster.
Okay, so now we have two different angles. One is I have to eat a dude, like a whole dude.
And I have to eat some calamari.
And you have to... I cannot imagine that illithids are tasty.
Probably not, no.
Oh, yeah. So that's like one of those reality show, would you eat some cockroaches for $1 million questions now for you. Whereas I have a moral dilemma of, do I commit cannibalism? Okay.
I just have the general ick factor to consider.
All right, so magical power, we're going to go with superhero suite of powers, right? So you can get flight, you can get super strength, you can get one of those. So we have to figure out which one you're going to go for. What would you, if you could have any superpower, what would you get?
Telekinesis.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And it's kind of on brand for the illithid. So
yes. I think durability. I want to have a regular lifespan, but I don't want to ever get sick or fear injury or anything like that. Nice. I want to be able to jump out of a plane without a parachute. And then maybe I can cure my own anxiety by just doing all of the things and no longer being afraid of them. Okay, so those are the things. So, and then we're gonna say this is permanent powers, right?
Okay.
So would I eat a dude? Would I eat a man? Would I eat a werewolf in order to? No, I would not eat a whole man. I couldn't eat a whole man. That's 100 and something.
I mean, you don't have to do it in one sitting. You can have leftovers.
Okay. Would I sous vide and eat? Because I sous vide all of my meat these days. So would I sous vide and eat a werewolf in order to get the power to be imperfect? Yes, absolutely. Because then, despite the fact that I've broken many laws, both moral and legal at that point, what would they do to me?
Oh gosh. So would I eat?
If I didn't know them. If it was a dude I knew who also turned out to be a werewolf, I think I'd rather have a friend who is a werewolf than...
Yeah, I could see some upsides and some downsides.
Yep. Okay.
Depending on your friend's level of self-control.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because maybe I would want to be impervious now if I've got a ravenous werewolf. Okay, what about you? Would you be willing to eat an illithid in order to get telekinesis?
I mean, I feel like there'd have to be a lot of caveats because I feel like if it's just like man versus wild here, things aren't looking good for me. But, God, and does he have to be alive when I'm eating him, or is this just
no? I think from the way we set it up, it's you get to prepare him. So
okay, I mean, yeah, I think at that point I could.
You could muscle your way through.
Muscle my way through, yeah. For some telekinesis, sure.
Awesome.
And the nice thing is, no one part is going to be less gross than any one other part.
But the problem is, you're going to have to eat so much that it's not like if, I don't know, if I was going to eat an oyster or something like that, which doesn't appeal to me, I could just muscle my way.
Slam it down and be done.
Yeah, exactly. And that wouldn't touch the sides. You just tip your head back and like a pill, right? But that's a lot of illithid. I mean, if you're gonna, I don't know, maybe illithid fried would be really good. I think that may be the way to go with an illithid because almost anything anything fried is good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could also maybe if you do you have to eat a whole one? Because if you just have to eat the heart of.
Yeah. See, if we're talking about I just have to eat an organ, I could do that. Name any magical creature, and I'd be willing to go for an organ worth, or 12 ounces worth of organ meat or steak or something like that. I could totally do.
But if I have to clear out space in my garage to put in a fridge to hold all this illithid meat.
Yeah, we get into all kinds of practical concerns. And then what if somebody else gets into your leftovers and eats some of your illithid? Will it not count then?
Oh man.
Yeah, I think your practical considerations are okay. So then let's get into the second version of this. Let's pick a small creature.
Okay.
And then you have to eat it raw and alive. So I think in that case, oh God, it's going to be the squonk. I've already said I love the squonk so much. I have to eat a squonk. What's your small version?
Oh God, I was going to say
a fairy or a pixie or.
Let's go with brownie. They got to taste good, right?
I mean, the culinary brownie is very good.
And that way, at least people aren't looking at you weird when you're like, oh, man, I ate a whole brownie this weekend.
Okay, so, all right, so what's your second choice on magical power for this version?
Oh, let's say flight.
Flight's good. Very classic. I think talking to animals is my second choice.
Oh, that's the best superpower.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually conversing with animals, because you can always talk to animals. I talk to my dog all the time. But yeah, being able to actually understand them and have conversations would be really good. Okay, so I got to eat a squonk in order to be able to converse with animals, and you have to eat a brownie in order to, and you have to eat it whole and alive. Okay, I think I've actually lucked out here because famously, the squonk, when it is actually confronted and you see it, it devolves into a puddle of tears and shame of its own appearance. And so then I just need a straw.
But is it still alive at that point?
Yeah. I mean, because it reforms afterwards, apparently.
Oh.
So I think it counts. The real question is, does it reform in my stomach then?
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'd do that totally. For the ability to talk to the animals, yes.
Yeah.
Well, as long as I don't get it halfway through and I can hear the skunk screaming.
Hate that.
Okay, so brownie for the ability to fly.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one quick crunch and, a lifetime of trauma. For the ability to fly?
Yeah, I'll take it. All right. Let me just double check that we didn't catch any more. Oh, here's one. Alice Kira, a friend of the podcast, asks Pokemon, which is the most vague question I've ever seen. Well, we've both mentioned that I don't think either of us played past Red and Blue for the most part.
I played Black and White for a little bit, and that was literally my only experience with the...
Oh, you didn't even play Red and Blue?
No, I didn't play Red and Blue.
Oh, okay.
I played Pokemon Go a bit.
Oh, yeah. Which was the Red and Blue Pokemon. Yeah, I'll tell an embarrassing story from my youth.
All right.
I was a little old for Pokemon. I was riding the bus, which means it was either middle school or high school. Possibly freshman year of high school. I think this might have been freshman year of high school.
Okay.
And I had my Game Boy, and I'd gotten a copy of Pokemon Red for $2 out of a bin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I printed out an entire FAQ walkthrough system with all of the information, and I stapled it together into a giant billfold, like a giant like folder thing, and carried it with me.
Well, back then that was really your only option if you wanted to have that stuff on demand.
Yeah. And I was like, because I wanted to get all of the Pokemon from Red, and I didn't get all 151 because I didn't get any of the blue Pokemon because I didn't have anybody who was also into Pokemon at the time. And then, we both played Black and White, and we got into a bit of an arms race on trying to create the most disgusting names that we could get past the profanity filter.
Oh, right.
And then the follow-up to that story is that I put my DS away for like a year, and then I was like, I'm not playing this anymore, and I gave it to my niece who was about 9 at the time, and I forgot to clear my save games. And I only thought about it like 3 or 4 years later, and I was like, eventually I asked her, I was like, were there some really horrible Pokemon names on it? And she said that there were, and that she was so embarrassed by it that she closed it and never opened it again. Never opened my save file again. She did play my game. So yeah, that's the answer to Pokemon.
Yeah.
Well, that is our year-long episode. And
all right. Happy anniversary, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. And we'll catch you guys later. Bye. Thank you for listening to our year-end special. I just want to take a moment to thank y'all for coming on this journey with us. We've already surpassed a lot of milestones that used to be, it would be nice, but we won't get that far. And here's a special shout out to everybody who tweets both awesome and cursed monster stuff at us, or even just flings their hot takes our way. Now, social media logic says that I should be asking for ratings or reviews right now, but by some weird twist of fate, this episode is coming out on Election Day here in the US, which means a lot of us are already feeling the stress of this weird-ass year coming to a climax. If you haven't already, please go vote. And then maybe we can all collectively pull the covers over our heads and try to wait out the last couple of months of 2020. Monster Mechanics is produced and edited by me, Scott Paladin, and hosted by myself and my best friend, Zach Jaquays. All of the ideas generated during our podcast are released under a Do What the F You Want public license.